Hello and welcome to a new video. Today we're gonna take a look at the Annihilape in the Open Master League, and this Pokemon is actually way better than I expected and also way better ranked than I expected. It's like ranked like 32 or something. Having access now to Ice Punch as well as Shadow Ball is really cool, and let's take a look at the team here as well. It's fairly similar to what I showcased as well as a potential option for this Pokemon as a team in my team video basically for Annihilape. If you haven't seen this one, I basically showcased some potential teams for this Pokemon. Back in the day, they didn't give this Pokemon Shadow Ball yet though. And so now we're going to have Shadow Ball on this Pokemon and we're going to use it as a say swap here. We kind of want to get out potential answers that would be answering something like the Giratina. And so we're going to have the Giratina as our sweeper in the back, and we're going to have the Everluck in the lead. And again, Hisuian Everluck plus the Annihilape is a really good core for the Master League, and also a pretty cheap core, I guess, both Pokemon being just standard Pokemon here. But you can actually still go for one Ice Punch here against the opponent's Shadow Mewtwo, but I don't even know if we're gonna need our final Pokemon because it's going to be a very decent matchup for us. And also they're running Flamethrower, which is a little bit of a weird move here, I would say. Like, even if you don't have the Elite Item to get something like Shadow Ball or whatever, either go for Focus Blast or for Ice Beam. Both those moves are also free to get and also really decent to get. But Flamethrower is not super effective, it's just neutral here thanks to our Rock typing, and we can easily win the first game. Second game coming up now, we're going to have a great lead here of the Lugia against our Everluck. This is going to be amazing for us, especially as you can just go for the Icy Wind. The opponent decides to stay in here, which I find kind of interesting, and we're actually going to get a shield immediately, which is going to be amazing as well. Another Icy Wind is coming through, does not get the knockout here for sure. It's going to do a little bit more damage though, and also, unless they were running Hydro Pump, which I feel like is a funny tech move as well in this Pokemon, they don't. We're going to be able to resist the move anyway, and so we're going to be in a great spot here. We can easily dominate the first matchup here. I can easily let this move go through. The double debuff, it's resisted, it's just a Sky Attack, and so we can now go up to 100 energy basically, have a one Icy Wind coming up against the opponent here. This is gonna get the knockout against the opponent's Lugia, and whatever comes back in, I could Icy Wind, but I decided to swap out instead into my Annihilape. And this is a cool thing as well against all those steel types like the Melmetal. You're going to have great play with both Annihilape as well as your Giratina, which kind of really covers the weakness of your lead, which is going to be like mainly steel type Pokemon, which is kind of cool. A little bit tricky for this team can be Dialga, but you can still actually deal with this Pokemon, especially also with your lead. You can play it out. You have Icy Wind on this, you have Powder Snow, it's still going to do some decent damage, and of course Annihilape is going to be very solid against like Dialga because of the super effective counter. But here we can hit the Shadow Ball, and with this we're going to be able to easily win this game as we can counter them down. Next opponent, we're going to have a Metagross in the lead as we're gonna swap out now into our Annihilape. This is not going to be ideal for us, but we're gonna get out the opponent's Togekiss. Again, not really a great matchup, but we still have coverage here with Ice Punch. Honestly, I made a video earlier already about the Annihilape in the Ultra League. Definitely check this one out there. I actually ran a completely different moveset of Close Combat plus the Night Slash, and this is a cool thing about Annihilape. Basically, there are like 4 or 5 different movesets that you can really run, and you can decide if you go for Ice Punch, you can decide to go for Night Slash, you can always want to have like a little bit of a bait move, and then you can decide if you want to go for the big Close Combat or if you want to go for the a little bit more stable move of Shadow Ball on this Pokemon. So like there is a lot of play for this Pokemon in kind of different kind of ways. So I kind of like this about this. Like it's not like one dimensional, you have like different kind of ways of playing it, which is just really cool to see. Here we're going to see also that we're going to be able to core break the opponent with our Giratina, which is going to be amazing, as you can just go for another Shadow Ball afterwards. The opponent goes for a charge move here. It's going to be the Brave Bird, which is going to be amazing for us because now Shadow Ball should be enough to knock them out. You should have definitely went for the Sacred Fire instead, and yes, it does do enough damage here. But can we still win this game? It's going to be a little bit close. They go for the charge move here, it's enough to knock us out. The Meteor Rash is coming through, it's not even close, and we can go for another Shadow Ball to easily win this game here as well, as we can now move on into the next game. Next opponent coming up, we're going to have a Gyarados here. Gyarados is actually an interesting Pokemon, can break. Also, I think it's actually really decent against the Zygarde plus the Solgaleo, because you have coverage against both of them. Like, it's a very interesting, kind of underrated, non-legendary Pokemon, which maybe I kind of want to make a video about as well eventually. Not like in the next time or whatever, but it's definitely still a Pokemon that has a lot of play here, especially being the hardest breaker for the Groudon plus Kyogre, which is kind of common right now as well, making this an interesting pick. Here we're going to see most likely something like a Dragonite coming in, and this Dragonite will not appreciate the Ice Punches. And this is like the cool thing about the Annihilape. Having access to Ice Punch is really good for this current meta, and Shadow Wall is even better for this current meta. And so we're gonna be able to get a shield advantage. I can swap back into my Everluck, get a ton of energy, just use one shield on a potential superpower. It is just the Dragon Claw, which is fine for me, but I can still go for the full farm down. And with this, we can get the knockout. We see the final Pokemon being a Metagross. I can get the debuff onto them. I can swap out, and this game is over. Like, there's nothing that they can do about it. I can just even go for the bait immediately, because I know I just do enough damage anyway with a fast move pressure already that I don't really have to go for Shadow Ball immediately. And so we're gonna be able to just let this next move go through as well. It's going to be the Meteor Mesh. It does basically no damage, and we can go for the Omnious Wind, which is going to clean up this game and get the knockout. So let's move on to the next one. Next opponent coming up, also going to have a Hisuian Everluck in the lead, which is definitely a solid pick there. We can still go for the Rock Slide against the opponent, which is going to do some decent damage. And yeah, like this, we're going to be able to get around half of the health of the opponent, which is great. And I also know, of course, now that I can take the move from the opponent here. I think there was a little bit lag on the opponent's side in the beginning, so I should be able to also get to the move a little bit earlier here. This is going to get the knockout if they let this move go through, and they do let this move go through, and now they're going to decide to swap into a Ho-Oh, which is a great matchup for me. And so I predict that they're going to just go ahead and use a shield here, and so I decided to go for the Icy Wind, which is going to be great because the opponent decides to use a shield. And with this, I can even still go for another charge move afterwards. Rock Slide is forcing another shield from the opponent here, guarantees me a shield at least, and we can see now that I can align my Giratina against the opponent. And yeah, we're going to be able to now shield up the Brave Bird over the opponent as well. They're going to get the defense drop here immediately, but as you're going to see, they can go ahead and go for the Brave Bird again. It doesn't do that much damage after the debuff especially, and they're going to have the Dragonite in the back. And so I can swap out into my Annihilape. I can do some decent damage here with the Ice Punch, and still Annihilape has some decent bulk for this meta. I don't actually know how or whatever, but it feels like Annihilape is good at everything, doing damage, having like a nice amount of bulk, having great coverage. Like, this Pokemon is like honestly so refreshing to the meta. I really like that this Pokemon has a lot of play right now, and that Niantic didn't screw this Pokemon up. And so here we're going to just basically, yeah, purposely let them knock me out. I can go for a Shadow Ball now against the opponent's Ho-Oh, and this is going to be a good game as we can move on to the next opponent. Next opponent coming through, we're going to have the Excadrill in the lead, which can be a little bit tricky. Of course, the Drill Run is going to do some super effective damage. Theoretically, also the Rock Slide, but Drill Run is, of course, the better way to go for. The opponent decides to go for the Drill Run as well, and doing a lot of damage there as they decide to swap out into the Groudon, which is going to have to take some Icy Winds now, which is kind of nice. So we're going to get the shield here immediately, but I can still even go for my own charge move, which is going to be great as well. So this is going to be able to get another shield actually, and so I can swap out into my Giratina. I decided to let this move go through it, thinking that the Presence Blade after 2 debuffs should not do any damage, and it still actually did quite a decent amount of damage. And honestly, I should have not done what I should have, what I'm going to do next, which is going to be using another shield here, and this is clearly just a Fire Punch, so this was a little bit of a mistake, but it's still a little bit late. I had to wait until midnight basically to get some sets back so I can make this video. So if you appreciate this video, feel free to leave a like as well. It's free. Would really appreciate this, especially also if you would subscribe to the channel, as it can now hit this Excadrill. But this was honestly one of my favorite games here. I think this is my favorite game of them all, where we're going to be able to just go into our Annihilape and they have their Shadow Mewtwo in the back, and we can say goodbye to that Shadow Mewtwo because we still have our shield left, and we also still going to be able to just go for that Shadow Ball, which is gonna get the clean knockout against the opponent here. Goodbye there, boom, and we can go for the double kill against the Excadrill. That was a nice rhyme, but let's move on to the next opponent. We're going to have the Dialga in the lead, and this can be a little bit tricky. So we can still go for the Ice Wind here, which I feel like is a great play to go for, basically. But now I decided to swap out and do some damage with counter, which also works out kind of nice. They swap out into the Ho-Oh. I misplay this a little bit here because I kind of want to go for the charge move one turn earlier, which you maybe saw there as well, but it didn't really register, so it went basically on a CMP type for like the opponent just getting basically the fast move through there for free, which is not really ideal. And so now the opponent still can get to a charge move here. I know this is just going to be a Brave Bird, so I decided to let this move go through, but maybe this was a little bit of a mistake as well, because I know that they're going to have the Dialga still in the back, and so I guess I still have like 2 charge moves stored here, so maybe it's still going to be fine. Let's take a look at this. We can still go for a charge move here. Icy Wind is coming through, gonna get the shield. I can still go for another Icy Wind afterwards, which is going to be able to also get some damage onto them. And so I can now shield this move up from the opponent. It's going to be the Draco Meteor, which is kind of great. And they're going to have in the back the Kyogre, and we can easily win this one. Next opponent, we're going to have a guard jump here against us, which is going to be a great lead for us. As the opponent stays in, I can just go for the Icy Wind, which is going to be amazing for me because it forces either the knockout or the shield from the opponent. This is going to be able to get the debuff onto the opponent as well, which is kind of nice. And so, because I know that they went for the charge move after 5, I know it's just a Sand Tomb, so it doesn't really do too much against me. They swap into the Kyogre and they decide to forfeit already. Next opponent going to have a Kyogre in the lead, and this is of course going to be horrific for us. We're now going to be forced to swap out into our Annihilape and try to go for something here, but they can completely hardwall me here with a Togekiss that's coming in afterwards, which is kind of awkward. Ice Punch is coming through. I can still try to go for the Shadow Ball, and hopefully it's going to be enough to knock them out in the zero shield scenario. Let's see if the opponent is going to fall for it. They do not, and they decide to use a shield, which is a little bit annoying. But now at least I can go to my Everluck, and I can use a shield into the potential Fang type move there of the Aura Sphere, but they're actually just gonna go for the Ancient Power, which is very smart by them, because this allows them to get to another move, which is going to be another Ancient Power. I can still survive it, it's a non-step move, but still, it's a little bit more tricky, and as they're gonna go into the Kyogre, they're going to have a Dialga in the back, and with this game is sadly over, because there's not a lot that I can do here. I just got completely hardwalled. There was literally zero play that I had here the entire way through. I can still try my best, but of course I know that the Kyogre has basically a move stored, and I don't think that this is going to work out as I wanted to work out. So we can still go for one Shadow Ball here. They can just go ahead and go for the full Farm Down. I'm still going to be forced to go for the full Farm Down here as well, but they have the Surf stored, and so they're going to be able to win this game. Good game there, but let's move on to the next opponent. Next opponent coming through, we're going to have the Mewtwo in the lead, which is going to be okay for us as well, as we're going to stay in here, of course, because I cannot swap out into our fighting type Pokemon against it. While we are part Ghost there, it still doesn't matter because he's still going to get a one-shot by one Side Strike. So here we're going to get the attack drop, which is kind of great for us. The opponent decided to actually use a shield as well, which is kind of wild. I decided to use a shield just in case they have the Focus Blast, but they decided to go for the Side Strike. And they're going to go for another Side Strike immediately afterwards, which is going to do some decent damage. But after this next charge move coming in, I should be able to put the opponent basically into a range where they cannot KO me, but they actually decide to swap out into the Metagross, which is going to be amazing, as we can now align our Giratina, go for the Shadow Ball immediately, which should get the knockout against them if they let this move go through, but they do not. They decide to use a shield here, and so I'm forced to use a shield as well, and I can still go for another Shadow Ball before the opponent should get there, because we just generate energy a little bit faster than the opponent. But no, they can actually still get to their own charge move because they had a little bit of an energy advantage moving into this matchup. And so I'm forced to go for the bait move here of the Omnious Wind as well, which is going to get them low enough that I can knock them out with one more fast move. In comes now the Dragonite, and honestly, I was really hoping that this goes a little bit differently. I was hoping I would be able to get the move off, but now I'm really sad about this ending, because I thought I would have played this like perfect basically. And yeah, we see here the opponent going for a charge move. I know that they have, of course, the Mewtwo in the back still, and I know that I need a little bit of energy. And I went here for the Ice Punch, and I should have went for one more fast move. If I just went for one more fast move, it wouldn't be a CMP tie, and I would have actually cleaned a game which was nearly impossible to win with Annihilape. But I needed one more fast move, and I found it a little bit too risky to go for that, so that's going to be sadly a loss for us. Final opponent for today, I hope you enjoyed this one. We're going to see here the Groudon against us in the lead, which is actually a fairly decent matchup, especially if they go straight for the Fire Punch. I feel like a lot of people didn't know really today that Fire type moves are actually just neutral against us, even though we of course an Ice type, but our Rock typing is resisting this, so we're going to be able to just have neutral damage from it. I decided to let this move go through because I thought maybe they go for Fire Punch again. They kind of trolled me here, so yeah, that was definitely nice by them, but this is just going to be a Fire Punch. It's like debuffed already, so I'm going to let this move go through. Does basically no damage, and I have the Ice Punch here against the opponent, which should pick up the knockout against the opponent's Groudon, which is going to be amazing, because now we will see what is coming back in. It's going to be a Togekiss, which is going to be horrific for us. But let's see what the opponent is going to do here. They decide to swap out into the Mewtwo, and I can go for the Shadow Ball before they reach any kind of charge move. And with this, I can get the knockout here immediately, and so the Togekiss is just on its own. We still have two shields, so I can go for one here. They're gonna go for the Ancient Power, trying to get the boost, which is, I guess, a way way to go, but I can go for the bait here, which is a little bit risky, but also not really, because I still should be fine here, as I would be able to still reach a move as well with my Annihilape. But Giratina is taking the lead here, going for the Shadow Ball, not gonna get the knockout straight away, but one more Ice Punch is all it takes, and we can now easily win this game. Just one more Ice Punch, and so Annihilape was actually a lot of fun to play for the Master League. Gonna take a look at this Pokemon in the Great League tomorrow, so definitely stay tuned for this, and I see you then. Bye bye.